You're primarily a medical doctor, correct?
Yes, Congressman.
Okay, so you're not considered, you consider yourself a law enforcement professional?
Congressman, I worked in West Virginia with law enforcement as Commissioner of Health for 2 governors, as well as local health
We
officers.
appreciate that service. I'm not trying to do anything other than clarify your background, the position you're in as our nation faces an unprecedented crisis of incoming deadly drugs across our southern border. It's going to call for a great deal of coordination between the executive branch in your particular department, which we have to determine if we intend to support reauthorization or not, and I'm not there yet. So as a law enforcement professional myself, I have questions about the direction that you're leading your department. And so I'm asking you legitimately, it's okay to be a doctor and not a cop, but when you're talking to folks about who you are you a doctor or are you a cop?
I'm proud to be a physician, but also have tremendous respect for the law enforcement officers across this nation.
Excellent and polished answer. So as the meetings that you have, how would you describe how extensive they are, the meetings that you have with the heads at CBP and Homeland Security investigations?
I have regular meetings with all of the agencies and more, as you mentioned, and there are...
Specifically CBP and Homeland Security investigations. How frequently? You say regular meetings. What's that mean?
Congressman, I just had a phone call this week with the acting commissioner, Troy Miller of CBP, and I intend to see him again next week.
How about HSI?
It's more or less, I have detailees in my office every single day. They come to work from HSI, from CBP, from a number of law enforcement agencies. Okay,
let's shift to, from your level of interaction with the leading Department of Homeland Security, law enforcement, and investigative forces at our border that are tasked with stopping the fentanyl from coming into our country and the meth. You familiar with the term China white? You know what that it was back in the 90s? That's not a trick question, I'll just tell you. When fentanyl first showed up on the street, we didn't know what it was. It was very rarely encountered. It was called China white. It was known to be super powerful and deadly. But it wasn't really an issue because the issue at the time, in the 90s and into the mid-2000s, was meth labs in America. Those were largely shut down by legislative action taken at the federal and state level to take Sudafed and Sudafed-type products off the shelf, make them only available over the counter, but with an ID through the pharmacy. That pretty much shut down the labs. But this vacuum was filled as the fentanyl trafficking began building, and it coming through Mexico. We knew this. And this stuff was so deadly, and I'm trying to get there, was so deadly, it was killing our canine dogs and officers who had come into contact with it. We had to change all our protocols on how to deal with this stuff. And now, it's so prevalent and so cheap, $100 to $150 a gram, and only requires 2 milligrams. That's a deadly dose. It's called a point on the street because you pick it up with the point of a pin. This is how deadly it is. And it's so cheap and so readily available, drug dealers are giving it away in order to establish an addicted clientele, to grow the addicted clientele. They're giving it away. We had 107,000 deaths in 2021, 108,000 in 2022, and your quote from earlier, good sir, was that you are not failing to intercept. So please explain.
Thank you, Congressman. And let me just be clear that I was involved in putting pseudoephedrine behind the walls. I was involved in those meth lab busts on the ground, actually. And the reason, if you think about it, why it went south of the border, the production of meth, is because of money. The reason that fentanyl is so profitable is because the small amounts, it affects the same amount and is so potent. So I think we have to understand what persuades these bad guys to actually go to the verge of killing 109,000 Americans a year. And it's actually profits, it's money. It's important, and this is why this administration is going through commercial disruption, going after the traffickers, but also their profits, pill pressers, dye molds, shippers, and working with shippers and express consignment carriers, and putting highest level of sanctions that we have on both Chinese companies, these companies, as well as the Mexican cartels, and producing the indictment along with arrests of hundreds and hundreds of the members in recent days that you have seen. Part of that all reason is to disrupt and dismantle these organizations, but also understand what drives them in the 21st century.
You've been very professional. My time has expired. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman yields